Apex players complain a lot. And there's actually been times where complaints were that bad about certain things in Apex, Respawn just removed them from the game. Like an optic that was completely removed, a rarity of knockdown shield that got deleted, and also some changes Respawn made recently thanks to years of complaints. Let's start though with a change Respawn made in Season 22 to every single weapon in the game. You may have noticed before Season 22, whenever you shot something like an L-Star or maybe a Spitfire, the visual effects that came from shooting your gun were so distracting sometimes you'd lose track of the enemy, and they generated loads of screenshots like this where people were like, how can I even fight with this thing when I can't see where I'm shooting? This caused Respawn to nerf visual effects from weapon firing back in Season 22, which was a great change and pretty much immediately brought the L-Star into the meta, although to be fair, the L-Star did have some changes before that. That wasn't the first weapon VFX change in Apex, as 20 seasons before that, Respawn did reduce the smoke and fire that came out of weapons, but now in Season 25, after all of these changes, VFX isn't too much of an issue in the game. There's one absolutely infamous thing that Respawn removed though, because it would annoy so many players who had to fight against it, as in Season 5, Lifeline received a buff which would deploy an invincible shield anytime she revived. This shield deployed if she just revived friendlies normally, or revived them with her dock. But there were a few issues with this shield. First of all, it was very annoying to fight against because it was invincible and Lifeline could just deploy it at any time and play around it. Also, it meant you couldn't thirst the enemy that was getting revived by Lifeline. And on top of that, it had no cooldown. Lifeline could deploy it whenever she wanted to, as much as she wanted to. This led to massively frustrating fights and people quickly began to hate the revive shield. This led to Respawn removing it in Season 9, which was met with a lot of happy players and a few really annoyed players. Funnily enough, Respawn did tease this change before it came out, as they revealed it in a collection event trailer in Season 8 a month or so before the change actually came into action, so a few people had some time to grieve before it was even removed. There's another thing though that Respawn were forced to remove, which was actually quite controversial when they removed it, as if you've been playing the game for a long time, you might remember we used to have gold knockdown shields. What did it have? Well, the gold knockdown actually had a passive called self-revive, which was pretty self-explanatory. It allowed anybody who had the golden knockdown to revive themselves after they got knocked. This also meant if one person on your team had a gold knockdown and you all got knocked, you wouldn't insta-die. Instead, you would stay alive until either the person with the gold knockdown was killed or you were thirsted. The gold knockdown was loved by casuals but absolutely hated by pros. Casuals loved that they got a second chance, but pros hated it because the self-revive was a bit of a crutch, and also in highly competitive endgames, the end circle would have a load of teams just crawling about because nobody could figure out who the enemy with the gold knockdown is to kill them. This also led to moments like this, where somebody who is literally downed could win the game, which seemed pretty unfair, so eventually Respawn made the decision to remove the self-revive passive and replace it with a passive where gold knockdowns would allow you to revive friendlies with more health. Could the self-revive come back? Well, for a short amount of time before Lifeline was reworked, she had a self-revive perk that she could equip, but now it's completely impossible. Lifeline can't self-revive herself anymore thanks to her perk reworks, and the self-revive does not exist, and I don't think it will come back. There's one thing though that Respawn received so much backlash for, I'm pretty sure they had no decision but to revert it, and they did revert it. I have never seen the community gang up on Respawn this hard, and this took place back in Season 21, when Respawn announced in Season 22 they will be introducing a new battle pass system which completely reworked how the battle pass worked. Now, people already had issues with Respawn splitting the battle pass into two unnecessarily, but what they took bigger issue with was the fact that Respawn wanted to remove the ability to purchase battle passes with Apex coins and make battle passes exclusively purchasable through real currency, which would have been a terrible change because that meant you could not buy a battle pass for coins. All of the coins you earn from the battle pass, you couldn't use them to buy the next battle pass, no. You could only use real cash. People hated this change, and Apex received the worst PR it had received in years, and so many articles and publications crashed down on Apex. About 2 weeks after the huge drama this caused and people just not letting it go, people weren't forgetting about this, Respawn announced that they were reverting the change and they would make the Battle Pass purchasable with Apex coins, which was a huge W for the community, and I'm glad they changed this because I think that change might have killed the game. One thing many people say is gonna kill Apex though is the lag. Apex is infamously laggy, and since release, people have consistently complained about the Apex servers. And to be fair, they're justified because there's so many clips of people blatantly shooting enemies and the enemies just taking no damage. To be honest, nobody really expected Respawn to make any change on this, but it turned out a few months ago they did take action, and it was quick, swift, and nobody expected it, as just over a month ago, a lot of people started noticing the server names in Apex had changed. And even weirder, the server names matched the Amazon AWS server names. Many people theorized that Respawn may have moved to Amazon AWS, and a few days later, Respawn confirmed it. Apex is now officially on Amazon Web Servers, which are the same servers Fortnite runs off. And since Respawn made this change, they have seen an actual measurable change to people's performance in game, a positive one, and also many people have given testaments that their game just feels better. Of course, they still haven't upgraded the tick rate, which is a very controversial aspect of Apex, but the fact that just out of the blue they upgraded the servers is a good sign for Apex's future, and them actually listening to people's complaints, because trust me, I think servers have been the main complaint for a good half a decade of Apex's life. Another recent thing they removed from the game, which nobody expected, was Revenant. A few weeks ago, loads of us logged onto Apex to realize Respawn removed Revenant, just the legend overall, we could not even select him, and this turned out to be because of an issue with Revenant himself. There was a glitch which made him invincible, and Respawn caught onto this very early because of a few player complaints and immediately disabled him. So I do think Respawn are responding better to player complaints, which is what this video is about, them responding to player complaints. One thing that took a while to remove though, and a lot of people complained about, was the thermal sight, aka the digital threat. People absolutely loved this sight when it first came out, as it could be combined with any smoke to create a one-way screen where you can just laser your enemies through it. But slowly over time, and with the skill level of the average Apex player raising, people started to hate this thing. Now don't get me wrong, a majority still loved it, but the hate for the digital threat slowly grew, especially among pros, who are turning out to be a big influence in Respawn's decisions. So at this point, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that the digi threat was removed back in season 20 due to just raising backlash over it, and also the optic not fitting into Apex anymore. It almost had the issue of the fact that people had outgrown the optic and become too good. A lot of people were crutching it to be very annoying, and at the end of the day, if you get shot through a smoke by an enemy that you can't see and they can see you and you don't know that they can see you, you will be mad. So I think them removing this was a net positive in the long term, but it is hard not to notice the fact that most of the things that Respawn removed were fun, quirky little things that pros and skilled players started to hate. Does this show Apex moving in a bit more of a competitive direction? Yes, but it doesn't show that Apex are moving in less of a fun direction. I think they just try to keep their fun, obviously OP weapons in limited modes or limited time slots, like the Power Sword, the Buster Sword, or the EPG. And I do think in the long term everything worked out. I don't think Lifeline would have been able to have such a cool rework if she still had that Revive Shield. But subscribe if you want the Revive Shield back though.